Neighborhood, how we doing? So this is so cool. I wanted to take a selfie. Can we? So you guys sort of do this, and then we'll take a selfie. I'm really terrible at selfies. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Before we go, and I don't know if you guys know this, we've actually tried to do this 3 times on Palm Sunday. The first 2 times it rained. This was like a pond out here. So finally, 3rd time's a charm. We finally get to be out here. It's awesome. So glad you all are here to hang with us. But today is gonna be kind of special. It's something we really don't do much around here at Neighborhood, but we've got all the kids in the service. So kids, I need to talk to you for just a minute. I need your help in the sermon this morning. So what I'd like every kid, if you want, you don't have to, I'd like you all to make your way to the aisle and walk all the way down the aisle until you meet our fabulous kids team, Miss Audrey, Miss Kara, and Miss Jackie. They're waving their hands. So go ahead, kids, right now, walk down the aisle and meet our amazing kids team, because you need to help me in just a few minutes. And parents, we promise we will give your kids back. We do not want them. We do not want them. So, yeah. We're gonna give them just a minute to make their way out of here. That is a lot of kids. That is so many kids. Little feedback, that's all right. That's all right. Okay, just a couple more seconds. We'll give them to kind of make their way out of here. Do I need to back up maybe? I'm hearing a little. Are you guys hearing a little feedback? Is that just a little bit? All right. That's a lot of feedback. Yeah. Okay. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. All right. Okay. Now, something that we've talked about before that I wanted to just bring up again because it matters for this morning is that Christians, if you're new to Christianity, Christians have a very unique way of marking time. And for the last 1,700 years or so, followers of Jesus have followed sort of a calendar within the calendar, if you will. We call it the church calendar. And it's more than just dates. It's really it's a rhythm. It's a way of that Christians use to retell the story of Jesus through the significant moments of his life. And today, if you don't know, marks the beginning of like the most important week on the church calendar. Today is something that we call the beginning of what we call Holy Week. As a church, we celebrate 3 events in 1 week. Today is Palm Sunday, and in just a minute, I'm gonna tell you why we call it Palm Sunday. On Friday, we celebrate Good Friday, where we honor and respect and pause on the day that Jesus was crucified. And then this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, because we like to go big, we celebrate Easter and the resurrection of Jesus. So there's 2 services on Saturday and 3 services on Sunday. Holy Week is this journey that moves us through, again, these most important, and I would go this far. Holy Week isn't just the most important dates on a calendar for Jesus. It's not just the most important dates on a calendar for Christians. I would go, and this may sound a little bit dramatic, I would say Holy Week actually are the most important dates in regards to the history of the world. It was this week, nearly 2,000 years ago, that changed the trajectory of humanity. Now, you may not be on board with that claim, but that's where I'm at. That the next 7 days represent the most significant 7 days in the history of the world. And we think it's such a big deal that we've actually want you to really engage with us kind of all 7 days. So what we've done is we've created a special devotional series that will be emailed to you every day if you'd like. It's called Symbols of Easter. And if you already get our daily devotionals, you do not need to do anything. You'll automatically get them. But if you do not get our daily devotionals, you can sign up. Just text NC Visalia to 9400 and we will start sending you these symbols of Easter devotional for the whole week. That's the end of all the commercials. I have no more commercials for you today. But I do want to pause and just say, as we begin the most significant week for Jesus, for people who follow Jesus, and in the history of the world, it begins with today. It's a day that we've known as Palm Sunday. We've called it Palm Sunday for as long as Christians have been kind of running around. And it's a day when Jesus enters Jerusalem for what would be the very last time. And he enters to a cheering crowd. I mean, people are going nuts. People are lining the streets. They are waving palm branches like they're victory flags, right? They're shouting Hosanna, and they're welcoming Jesus as a king. This moment is often called the triumphal entry. Jesus sort of moving into Jerusalem triumphantly as a king. The crowds in Jerusalem are celebrating him as a king. But he enters not as the kind of king that they expected, because Holy Week, and this is really the fascinating thing about Holy Week, it's a bit of a collision. It's a collision, it's a tension that we hold. It's a collision between joy and sorrow. It's a collision between glory and grief, because the cheers of Palm Sunday echo right into the silence of Good Friday, when Jesus is executed at the hands of the Roman Empire. In just 5 days, the same city and the same crowd that hailed him king would watch him die as a criminal. Today, Palm Sunday holds a tension, I think, that we cannot and should not ignore. Because while people saw their king arriving in power, Jesus knew he was walking towards his death. He didn't enter the city, or when he entered the city, he set a plan in motion that would lead to him laying down his life for them, for you, and for us. And today, all I want to do for just a couple of minutes, because we've got like a gazillion kids out there that only have so much patience. I just want to walk through the events of that Palm Sunday as recorded by an early Christian missionary named Mark. And Mark sort of tells the story in rapid fire sequence, and I just kind of want to do that this morning in just a couple of minutes. And here's how Mark sort of picks the story up. He says this. He says they, Jesus and his entourage, if you will, approached Jerusalem and came to Bethpage and Bethany at the Mount of Olives. Now, just pause where we are sort of in the story. Jesus has been spending time in a city called Jericho. He's now making his way to Jerusalem, and he's reached a place called the Mount of Olives. Now, what you don't probably know is that Jericho is actually the lowest city in the world in terms of sea elevation. It's 800 feet below sea level. Jerusalem sits at about 3,000 feet of elevation. Jesus, in just 12 miles, has gone from 800 feet below sea level to 3,000 feet. So he's climbed 300 feet elevation in about 12 miles. It's not a paved road. It's rocky, it's dusty, and it's straight uphill. This isn't a casual stroll for Jesus. And after hours of steep hiking, he finally reaches the Mount of Olives, the first place when you show up where you can actually see Jerusalem out in the distance. If you ever get the chance to go, it is an incredible sight to see. And this is where we find Jesus standing sort of on the edge of history, on the edge of his history and the edge of our history, preparing to step into the most defining moment of his life. And why is Jesus headed to Jerusalem? He's there to celebrate with about 120,000 other Jewish people, something that they call and still celebrate today, Passover. Passover is a huge deal, like the most important festival that the Jewish faith celebrates. It's a celebration of God freeing the nation of Israel, the Hebrew people, out of 400 years of enslavement to the Egyptians. And if you know the story, maybe you've seen the movie or one of the movies, you might remember that God sends plagues, like a series of plagues to convince Pharaoh, who's the king of Egypt, to set his people go, or let his people go. And all of the plagues, it's really disastrous, but none of it's working. So the last plague is like the most intense. It's called the death plague, if you will. And it's the death of every firstborn son in Egypt. But God had made a promise to the Hebrew people. Here's how it reads. If you sacrifice a flawless lamb and put its blood over your doorframe, the angel of death will pass over your home and your family will be saved. And that night, the angel of death sort of visits Egypt, sweeps through Egypt. All the firstborn are dead except the Hebrew firstborn because of the blood of the lamb. That they sacrifice the lamb and they put the blood of that lamb sort of above the doorframe of their homes. And so Passover, from that moment on, Passover was this annual celebration where the Jewish people celebrate that God passed them over and spared their firstborn. And it was quite a celebration. Jesus reaches to the top of the Mount of Olives, and he's done walking at this point. He would like to ride in at this point. He wants a ride. And he decides to ride in on a donkey. Here's how it gets recorded. Jesus sent two of his disciples, his friends, his followers, his students, saying to them, go to the village ahead of you, and just as you enter it, you will find a colt, donkey, tied there, which no one has ever ridden. Untie it and bring it here. If anyone asks you why you're doing this very strange thing, just say the Lord needs it and we'll send it back shortly. They went and found a colt outside in the street, tied at a doorway, and they untied it. Some people standing there asked, what are you doing untying that colt? They answered, as Jesus had told them to, and the people let them go. When they brought the colt to Jesus and threw their cloaks over it, he sat on it. Jesus wants a donkey. Why not a horse? Why not a march into the city like a king, powerful on my stallion? It's because Jesus is doing something very intentional. He's reenacting an ancient prophecy that the Jewish people would have immediately recognized. There was an ancient Hebrew seer. His name was Zechariah, and here's what he said hundreds of years before Jesus. Rejoice greatly, O people of Zion. Shout in triumph, O people of Jerusalem. Look, your king is coming to you. He is righteous and victorious, yet he is humble, riding on a donkey. Jesus isn't just picking a donkey at random. No, he's setting up a moment on purpose. He's making a statement with the donkey. He was declaring himself the long-awaited Jewish king and Messiah. So picture the moment. Picture the moment. Jesus is riding towards Jerusalem. You can see the temple, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. It was incredible. The city's packed. 100,000, 120,000 people. There's campfires and tents and music and kids running around. I mean, it's absolute mayhem and chaos and party. It's pretty amazing. But here's what else Jesus sees that you may not be aware of. Why he's seeing all of that. Right behind the temple, the Romans, who were the occupying force in Jerusalem at the time, had built a fortress. It was called the Fortress of Antonia. You see it sort of on the right-hand side. There it is. It's highlighted there. Normally 600 soldiers. Passover, there's 12 to 1,500 Roman soldiers. They were terrified of an uprising, a revolt, something like that. And Jesus rides in, and he sees the two realities. He sees the joy of the Jewish festival, and he sees the oppression of the Roman Empire. And Jesus knows exactly what's coming next, a collision that'll ultimately lead to his death. Because the people that are shouting, "Hail the King," just a few days later would shout, "Crucify him, crucify him, crucify him." But Palm Sunday is still a moment of celebration. It's a moment where maybe they weren't getting everything they expected. I think the Jewish people expected a king who would overthrow the Romans, but instead they got a king who would overthrow sin and death. And Jesus, he rides in to Jerusalem, and the people have lined the streets, and they're waving their palm branches, and they are shouting something. They're shouting, Hosanna, Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Now, Hosanna is this word we don't use ever, but it means save us. Jesus rides in as a king, and the people are waving palm branches that represent freedom and victory, and they're shouting, save us, deliver us, Jesus. You're the one we've been waiting for. And so for nearly 2,000 years, Jesus' people have been gathering together on Palm Sunday and reenacting that moment where Jesus enters triumphantly, and the people line the streets and they wave their palm branches and they are shouting and singing, save us, deliver us, Hosanna, Hosanna, blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. And so right now the kids are gonna start walking down with an actual live donkey, but no Jesus on top of it. And they're gonna be waving their palm branches while you of our lungs. So would you stand? And parents, as we do this, go ahead, Jackie. As we do this, you can get your kids back at the back after the service, okay? They're gonna come and make a lap and be back there. That's where you get your kids. Let's sing, you guys.